Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson. Welcome to the CineFiles, the show that allows you to eavesdrop on the conversation of fellow film fanatics. Today we're discussing a topic that was requested by a lot of people on our Facebook discussion group. It's the Die Hard series with Bruce Willis.
Yippee-ki-yay mofo.
Yeah.
You can curse. We're on the internet.
Goodness. But it's so cliche to say motherfucker.
Yeah, I know.
I decided just to dress it up a bit.
And today sitting in for Mike Foltz is Mr. Jeff Galashaw.
Mike Foltz, who is currently at Rio City Music Hall right now watching Pulp.
Die Hard. Well, what can you say about Die Hard? But this
One of my favorite action films of all time.
This is a perfect movie.
I love Die Hard. Die Hard is one of the great action films, and it came at a time where action heroes, especially in the 80s, were these, muscle-bound supermen.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone.
And in here, for the first time, he had this blue-collar guy who was just a Joe. He wasn't exceptional. He just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and happened to be a cop. And
He was an everyman.
And it was a great concept. It was wasn't the first contained action film.
I think it was.
But it was probably the best. It was the first A-picture contained, because you can make an argument that something like Assault on Precinct 13 is a contained action film, and you've had a lot of westerns that were contained action films.
I'd like to call this one more
that.
of a siege film. This one, in fact, I have a very interesting history for you guys on this one. This will fascinate you. Many years ago, Frank Sinatra made a movie called The Detective, which was a pretty, big deal.
Yeah.
And the writer Roderick Thorpe wrote a sequel. It was what became Die
Hard, exactly.
Which is hard to believe.
This is interesting.
That a Frank Sinatra potential vehicle became Die Hard. It's kind of like Midnight Cowboy when it was originally written. This is not a joke. When they wanted to film Midnight Cowboy, they wanted to cast Elvis and Sammy Davis Jr. in the movie. That's not a joke.
Oh
but Die Hard was originally, I think they were going to retool it into a sequel to Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because Joel Silver, of course, produced Commando, what made him a pretty big producer, and then he produced Predator, and then he produced Die Hard. Now, it makes sense because Predator was directed by John McTiernan, and John McTiernan worked with Silver, and so he brought him over to make this film. Now, when Die Hard was made, what's real interesting is that Bruce Willis, everyone knows, he's only had one real movie behind him, which was Blind Date, a very funny movie, and he was on Moonlighting.
Moonlighting was very successful.
Yeah, he was known as he was also the Seagram's guy.
Which Bruce Willis was incredibly funny in.
Yeah, he was a comedic actor.
You've not seen him do anything like that lately. He was a very good comedic actor.
He's terrific in Blind Date.
And he is very good in Blind Date.
Hysterical. That's in fact the last good Blake Edwards movie. And to cast him as the leading man hero in this film is pretty risky gambling, In fact, the early posters for Die Hard didn't even have Bruce Willis in them. They just had a picture of the skyscraper blowing up. And of course, then later on you'll see the superimposed image over there. That's why the poster is what it is. Now, the film was written by Stephen E. D'Souza, who became a really, the action writer of his time. In fact, I would say Shane Black is the better writer, but in terms of mindless action films, Stephen E. D'Souza is the guy you would go to.
Would eventually go on to direct Street Fighter.
But Jesus Christ, dude, you need to be shot for Street Fighter. But everything that works about Die Hard is that it truly is an original film at that time, the siege movie.
It turns all the action cliches on their ear for at the time, where, you're used to villains always having this diabolical plot and, full-heartedly only into this plot. But then in this film, it reveals this is only dressing for what I really want to do, which, of course, all goes back to Eric's favorite series, the James Bond series. But also, you have the movie that introduced me to the greatness that is Alan Rickman,
right, yeah.
Who is the world's greatest villain. I will make that claim on this show, and I dare you to challenge it.
Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber. I mean, I will give him credit. Not exactly the most believable Texan accent, but passable.
Texan?
Well, he does a fake. This should be explained.
Accent,
He's a European character trying to do a fake Texan accent, which is what it's funniest scene in the movie. And Alan Rickman's great, but I was familiar with Alan Rickman's work because Alan Rickman played the John Malkovich part on Broadway in Dangerous Liaisons. the original
I didn't see
Broadway
it.
production,
I can't say
which
I
was
saw it.
Liaison d'Anjou.
By the way,
But-
they wrote that scene in there because they saw him do an American accent, and so they actually wrote that scene into the movie, I read.
And there is also the infamous scene where when the FBI guys come in and they're talking all this technical talk, but you realize they're really idiots, even though in a typical action film, these would be the people who are going to come and rescue you.
What was that comment that, what's his name? What's that actor that plays one of the FBI guys? You know,
Robert
Randall
Davi?
Bush?
Yeah, no, Davi. Yeah, Davi says, "Oh, this reminds me of being in Vietnam," and the other one says, "I was in high school, asshole," or something like that.
It's like fucking Saigon.
And
That's right.
And has Paul Gleason,
It's
one
a very,
of my favorites.
it's a very tight script. It's a very tight action film. It's a very well choreographed action. And they're fun characters. You're really engaged with the characters. Bruce Willis was perfectly cast in this part.
What's amazing is he really does carry this film, and this is a movie that made him a star, right?
Die Hard is sort of like an inverted take on the Siege film, you know, and there's been films that have been contained within a building where a guy tries to fight his way out. And a good example of that was a novel written by now I forgot his
Richard Stark?
Richard Stark, aka Donald Westlake, his Parker series, you know, guy, you know, Point Blank, you know, all that. Well, he wrote a Parker novel called Slayground. Do not see the 80s movie starring Peter Coyote. It's terrible. It's nothing like the book. But in the book, Parker is a guy that's getting away from cops, and he has all this money that he just stole from a mob, and he runs into this abandoned amusement park that's closed for like the holiday, and he's being chased in there by both mobsters and the cops, and he has to figure out a way to fight his way out of that situation, and that's what the whole book is about.
Well, so the thing is, the book was written years before. I don't know how faithful the book is to the original Die Hard, so I can't.
Well,
comment.
we're talking about, that's a separate thing. That has nothing to do with Die Hard. But I'm talking about, it's an example of how Die Hard's not
let's just say,
original. That's
this
been
is
done
the first
before.
film really to put this, you know, the claustrophobia, the siege, in the forefront, where the entire movie is basically.
Well, it's not technically a siege film. It's like an inverted take on a siege film. Zulu's a siege film.
Let's just say
Assault on
Cat
Precinct
Mouse.
13 is a siege film. Night of the Living Dead's a siege film.
So what would you call this then?
I would call it an inverted. I would say that it's a contained thriller. You know, and what it did was it started this whole trend of contained thrillers, like Under Siege, you know, things like that. To a certain extent, Panic Room, you know. But you've had all these films that came out, Cliffhanger, you know, where you try to put like a guy who's like just a normal guy who's put in an extraordinary situation, who's the only one that could like save the day, is put in a situation where he has to handle it, and usually has to fight his way out from within.
Yeah, that's what.
And the latest example, which we just saw, The Raid.
Yeah. Well, it's a very good way to use, you know, one set and to make it interesting. And let me tell you, what makes it going is the pacing and the expert craftsmanship by John McTiernan. It's hard to believe that this man directed this film and then went on to the career that he had later on, because he started to slowly deteriorate film after film after film.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Because he really, with Die Hard,
now he's in jail.
He's in jail, yeah. Well, he lied under oath. What do you expect? And then he sadly made Rollerball before that. Oh.
Yeah. Well, anyways, but Medicine Man was worse, I thought.
No.
At least Rollerball was somewhat entertaining.
At least he had
Ron
good
Connery.
actors with Medicine Man.
Medicine Man was just awful. But anyways,
Oh, well, let's mention too all the trade. What makes this movie great too, and I mean, I usually don't give a producer credit, but I gotta give a lot of credit to Joel Silver, because everything that's in this film is trademarks from his other films. Number one is you got Michael Kamen, who's doing the music, who did the Lethal Weapon series. You got John McTiernan, who also did Predator. You have Stephen E. D'Souza, who we mentioned earlier, doing it. You have Jean Debon, I believe, did the cinematography. I could be mistaken.
it's
on
the
that.
best film in the series. I think it's the best
It is
film
the
in the
best
series.
film in the
It is the best
series.
film in the
It is the best film in the series, and
It's the best written. It's the tightest plotted. It gets a little off the rails.
And what's so funny now is you see a lot of the stuff has become cliched because it's been used in so many other films. I mean, so many films have ripped it off, as you've mentioned. But it was a huge hit. It actually became a bigger hit on video than it did in the theater. It really, I mean, in the theater it was out, it did pretty well, and when I really first saw it was on video. And back when I was a kid, the VHS tapes looked terrible because they were all squeezed, because this is a film that has to be seen widescreen. Everything is cut off. It is probably the worst pan and scanning I've ever seen. So if you do see the film, see it widescreen, and you know, hell, you've already seen the film. Why are you even telling you to watch it?
And what's great about Die Hard is that they really ratchet up the obstacles. It's screenwriting 101. Keep throwing obstacles at your protagonist. And it goes from him being trapped in a situation without a weapon to like having to be barefoot. And not only that, but his feet are cut from glass. So it's like he has all these obstacles that he has to overcome, and it's actually very well done. It's very clever.
Do you make fists with your toes after you get off the airplane?
Do I make fists with my toes after I get off my... No.
That's a Die Hard reference. You don't
Okay,
remember that?
that was
No, don't you remember that?
random.
No, don't you remember that? Like, you make fists with your toes. That's why you're not wearing shoes.
Oh, how could you forget?
I was out. Reginald Val Johnson?
No, that's not actually. Oh, why? Because I'm black. I have
No!
to go with a black guy.
No, because I like that's one of my favorite parts of the relationship.
Before he was on Family Matters, yes, Reginald Val Johnson was in
That's
this
not why
as
I
a
mentioned
portly
it.
black cop who is Bruce Willis's.
But he's the hero.
Well, I was actually going to mention asshole extraordinaire William Atherton.
Yes, I was going to mention William Atherton as well.
Well, there's so many assholes in the movie. You got William Atherton. You have
Robert Davi.
You have Paul Gleason.
Well, he wasn't really an asshole. He was just a.
Yes, he was. He goes.
He was just a supervisor. All supervisors are
That's what
usually
made me laugh.
assholes.
That's
in
what
movies.
I have to. You just made me think. I have to comment on this. Roger Ebert, when he reviewed Die Hard, gave it a really bad review because he said the movie is filled with stupid supporting characters who do the opposite of what a normal person should do.
But without
and he
those
always
characters, there wouldn't be the
yeah,
film.
he kept mentioning like Paul Gleason's character and the Robert Davi character always doing the things that they shouldn't do, the stupid stuff.
But see,
but it works so well.
But I would like to
Yeah,
argue that for most films, because if it wasn't for characters making bad decisions, you wouldn't have 90 minutes of a film to watch.
Well, the thing about Die Hard as well that makes it really work is the sense of humor. It's a very tongue-in-cheek film.
Yes.
You know, and I just feel like shaking Roger Ebert's body and saying, "Did you not get that?"
I really love the relationship between Reginald Val Johnson and Bruce Willis's character through the walkie-talkie. I think that adds a really good. That actually, I think, helps carry the movie along.
And that's a
quite
great
bit.
screenwriting conceit. It was a smart way to kind of develop a relationship on two levels, because you can't have everything happen in the building. You have to have some stuff happen outside. So that was a good connector between what was going on in the building and what's going on outside. Again, screenwriting 101.
Of course, when a movie is successful, what do we get? A
The
sequel.
sequel.
And the sequel is Die Hard 2, Die Harder.
Piece of shit
I actually
is what I like to call it.
You'd be surprised. When I first saw this film back in 1990, I remember it was a big deal. I was really excited to see it, and I really saw it, and I really didn't like it because I thought, as you're talking about the humorous touches, like, he happens to go to an airport, and all this stuff happens on Christmas, and they keep trying to rehash similar moments to the original, like, oh, I can't believe this is happening again. If they would have cut that out, I thought it would have been a much more powerful film. However, in recent years, since I've gone back to it, I've actually really liked it. It's actually my second favorite.
Well, no, see, here's where I have the problem with this film.
Go ahead.
Is that, okay, I get, oh, ha, 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 yeah, it's all happening all over again. But one of the things that this film misses is the tongue-in-cheek humor, because it plays more like an action film. And also the thing that really pissed me off about this film is that you don't have a memorable villain. And that is what you need for a successful action film. And the villain, again, supposedly has this shady plot, which is masking what they really want to do. But it's just played so straight and humorless that even though I enjoy William Sadler as an actor, I was just like, he brings really nothing to a role. This role, anybody could have played this. And then the twist, because most of you have seen this, and if you haven't, stop here. And then you find out John Amos, the great John Amos, is in this film. And you're just thinking, oh, he's that balls to the wall type general. And then you find out, oh, he's in on it. And I mean, it's an interesting twist, but it doesn't really bring anything to
Good times.
I'm not saying good
Oh
time.
my God,
What?
you
Do
are
you really want to
really-
make this a minstrel show?
I completely agree with you. I do think it's an entertaining film. I don't think it's a shitty film.
Shit.
But I do think it's a shallow sequel
I
to
thought the
what
same
is
thing
a
you did.
great action film. I thought a lot of it was just a cash-in from what happened before. I thought even Bruce Willis's John McClane, not only were they just trying too hard to do all the stuff that they thought made John McClane successful in the first movie.
I'll be honest. When I first saw the film, I really didn't like it either. But I began to watch it over the years, and I began to ignore the things that bothered me, and I learned to enjoy myself quite a bit. It's the scenes with the planes, crashing, are very well edited and shot. It moves very, very
We
fast.
should also add Rennie Harlan directed this.
Rennie Harlan did a pretty good job with this. And
I don't have a problem with the way the film's directed. I don't have a
the script is
the script
problematic,
is very. It just feels like a sequel, like a typical '80s, early '90s sequel, where the sequel was always, well, let's do what we did before but bigger. and really lay on thick all the stuff, all the elements that we thought made the first one a success.
It's a lot like a remake in a lot of ways.
It's a little annoying. I find a film to be an annoying sequel.
That's what I felt. That's what
Although
I felt.
I have to say that it is still watchable. I mean, like I can sit there and watch it and not like hate myself for watching it.
I can't.
But I do think it's a. I don't think it's a very.
Well, seriously, I felt the same way you did.
It's not my favorite.
The plane crash.
I don't think it's the second best
for
one.
me.
But what I like about the film is, like I said, I was able to look past the things I didn't like. Like I said, I thought the lazy scripting is how they always try to tie it in with the original. Oh, I can't believe it's having me on Christmas. That is annoying. But like I said, the action scenes are well done. There's a lot of good cat and mouse. Bill Sadler's a good actor. Unfortunately, I wish they would have beefed up his role. However, I thought Franco Nero was a pretty good villain, even though he didn't have enough time.
Franco Nero was a pretty good villain. He doesn't do anything. And for a while there, he's not even a villain. He's just a guy. He's a MacGuffin.
Exactly.
He's not really. He doesn't have anything to do in the film.
Well, what do you think of John Amos?
Well, John Amos was great only because he had a presence, and his character had presence, and there was that whole thing where you thought, oh, John Amos is the important character who respects John McClane, and he's the one who sees John McClane for the real, that he's the smart one in the room, and then the twist is, no, he's actually the bad guy.
I thought that they had a great fight on the plane. That was a
But there was, yeah, no, I'm saying there's great action segments in it. But my issue with the film is it's an annoying sequel.
It's
annoying. That annoying sequel. It was very popular. You know, a lot of sequels were guilty of it.
I can't deny that there's a lot of annoying things in it, but there's a lot of things that I.
You forgot to mention what's his name.
I love Dennis Franz.
Dennis Franz.
He's terrific.
Yeah,
he's terrific. His scenes with him are great. They are. I mean, they're not. I mean, they're trying to obviously do the whole thing with him and the Paul Gleason again. But I thought they did a pretty good job with it. And
yeah,
William Atherton
but they made him a little smarter than the Paul Gleason character.
Yeah.
And
like he comes around at the end and realizes.
I will concede to one thing. The whole thing with his wife on the plane with William Alderton is just that was a perfect example of annoying.
But I mean, stuff like having his wife, you know, zap William Atherton.
In the toilet with the gun.
Which was not really, if you think about it logically, it wasn't necessary to do that.
And what's so funny is that, you know, like, there's the woman who brought a stun gun on the plane. Well, now, you know, well, not today, maybe back then.
So anyway, so basically you probably, you like it, you like
it's my
it
favorite of the
better
sequel.
now.
It's my favorite of the sequels.
Yeah, which
of the sequels. Of the sequels.
Really? Again, really?
I don't know why. I told you, I hated it when I first saw it. I was very disappointed in it. But over the years, I was able to overlook its shortcomings.
I suspect.
There's some stuff that's really good in there, but the stuff that is annoying that I mentioned is pretty annoying.
I suspect that the next one we're going to talk about, you think is the best of the sequels, and I will agree with you. Go ahead.
All right. Well, the next film is Die Hard with a Vengeance, which came out 5 years later. It actually marked the return of John McTiernan to the Die Hard universe, and it was written by Jonathan Hensleigh, who went on to write and direct The Punisher as well as other films. The film was originally titled Simon Says.
It was an original.
It was an original script that had nothing to do with the Die Hard, universe, but it was retooled to become the Die Hard script. Originally, the next Die Hard film was supposed to take place on a ship, but of course, with the success of a movie called Under Siege with Steven Seagal, they took the Simon Says script and
which is very smart.
Yeah, it was
smart for them to open it up.
Because then I guarantee you would have had a repeat.
Too.
You would have had a repeat of Die Hard 2. You would have had the exact same things happen. Oh, I can't believe I'm on a battleship.
There's another self-contained action film we didn't talk about, Speed.
Yeah, Speed.
Speed's a great one. That's probably actually that and Executive Decision are probably the two best ones, I would say, outside of that Die Hard.
When it comes to this film, I think that actually helped was going to a fresh source and not directly writing a sequel. You know, going out, finding an original script and shaping it around the Die Hard character, because really the only person who returns is John McClane, the character. The wife is mentioned, but she's never seen. We don't get Reginald Val Johnson. There's no William Atherton. And the film also happened to coincide with at the time when there was a bombing in the United States. So it was a little more real when the film came out, because when they were filming it, none of that had happened.
And these bombings you're talking about, by the way, we should mention, is the World Trade Center in 1993 and the Oklahoma City bombing, which was untimely when it came out. In fact, we should tell the plot is about a mad bomber who is Jeremy Irons, who is related to the Hans Gruber character in the first one. So that brought a lot of fanfare to the film. But what I really liked about this film is that the relationship you talked,
about that he had formed with Reginald Val Johnson, he sort of forms a bond, more of a sidekicky bond with Samuel L. Jackson, who he is forced to take throughout all these obstacles, because the plot of the film is he's sent on supposedly all these, these little missions with Samuel L. Jackson that are really impossible to, complete, but it brought back the spirit of the character that I felt was missing from part 2. Again, not everything was a wisecrack. There was actual danger in this one for him. I mean, of course, as usual in every action film, he has all these impossible tasks and he somehow does it, so it makes him look like, he's, indestructible. But, in this film, he also gets injured at certain points, and he doesn't really necessarily get along with Samuel L. Jackson's character, but they're going through all this for the greater good. And I have to mention, not as good as Alan Rickman, but you bring the great Jeremy Irons into this film, and, it's kind of,
well, he's
a little
good
beneath
choice.
him.
He's
Yes.
a good choice.
I just want to add, I love what you're saying. What I also love about this particular sequel, it feels like a sequel. It feels firmly rooted in the John McClane universe, but it feels original. And I love, it could have been cliche, but I love that they introduced McClane as this alcoholic, just fuck up at this point. And they explain it. It's like this guy peaked too much. They allude to his previous adventures, but he couldn't get his personal life together, and that fucked him up. I also like how, out of all the Die Hard films, every single character in this is smart. The thing they kept going back to in the second one, which is why I found this is another reason why the second one was annoying to me, they always had to have stupid authority figures. Stupid authority figures that don't listen to John McClane. Of course McClane is the hero, he's the one who's right, they're wrong, and they're stupid. And, stupid journalists, and all this stuff. In the third one, everybody is smart.
Also, what I really liked is that they got the New York geography right.
Yes, the best example of getting New York geography right on film I have ever seen.
And it's a great backdrop, too.
They get it all right, from Harlem all the way down to Tompkins Square Park in the Alphabet City. And then on the, what is it? They're on the River Express, the Hutchinson Parkway.
They go to the aqueduct. They did a great job.
And the whole thing is just very well done. I would say that I only have one problem with the film.
I have one problem, too, and I know what it is.
The way, from the point when they're on the bridge and they're like climbing down on the boat, that is like, oh, come on. Really? Is that the best thing you can come up with?
My main problem, though, with the movie is the ending. The ending was reshot not even a month before it was supposed to be released because they didn't think it worked well. And in fact,
the original ending is cool.
The original ending is a lot more low-key. It has to do with a game.
It's darker,
very dark, and I can see why it was reshot, but the ending that they did doesn't really, it's just, it feels it has to be so epic when not all big movies need an epic
there are good things to the ending. I like how they tie,
The bottle aspirin is lame.
Yeah, where, I hate the whole stuff when he goes down on the boat, whatever. But I don't mind the stuff where they're finally out of the country and they're kind of celebrating. Because
how they find him is lame.
And I like the little coda where, Samuel Jackson says, why don't you call your wife?
The next film is
Live Free or Die Hard.
Die Hard, which I saw in theaters.
And I did too. And the reason that this film came, it was, it was about 12 years later. It took a long time. The only reason that we got a Die Hard 4 is because Bruce Willis was making this very mediocre film called Tears of the Sun. And the title was, they wanted to call it Tears of the Sun, but Fox had already registered that title. And part of the settlement, somehow, Bruce Willis said he would do another Die Hard film, but they let him do Tears of the Sun. Well, my problem with this film, it's not a Die Hard film.
Why don't you tell us what the plot is?
Well, no. That's the first time to say it.
The plot is a little hard to explain. That's the
ridiculous.
problem.
It's not a Die Hard film.
Well, it's almost similar in a lot of ways to Die Hard with a Vengeance. Just expanded across several states. I don't know. I'm not even clear what states.
It's a remake.
It made John McClane into a superhero because, he's on the wings of planes now, and I'm just like...
And every now and then they have to remind you it's John McClane by having him say stuff like yippee-ki-yay.
And which I love, by the way. I have to mention, that pisses me off. Again, everyone knows my pet peeve. Fuck you, PG-13. I love how on the poster it says yippee-ki-yay, and it has the little parts emmed up. He can actually, when he says it, it's actually distorted with a explosion because it's a PG-13 movie. So fuck you, Hollywood.
Well, you know what? I don't care if a film's PG-13 or rated R, as long as it's done well. My problem with Live Free and Die Hard is that it is all over the place. It's
ridiculous.
You lose to too many people.
Well, it's not just that, but
and-
the physical space that it's supposed to take place in. I mean, at one point he's in New York, and he's in New Jersey,
Camden.
and then he's in Washington D.C. and I don't know where the fuck he is by the end of the film. It's just like hard to keep track. There is some good ideas in there, and taking like this old school John McClane character and pitting him against this new generation of internet geeks and stuff that are taking over the world and are the new heroes. And
well, I thought about. I just didn't like the wink wink nudge nudge thing, like where you have Kevin Smith in there as the. I don't think it's Kevin Smith.
He talked about his time.
It's just it's really
and there's stupid jokes too. It's like like when Bruce Willis is looking at the Boba Fett and he's like, oh, you're into the Fett. It's like, yeah, the guy who wrote this obviously is not into geek culture.
But see, the problem is this movie was based on a Times article in the Times about cyber terrorism, and I guarantee you, within 10 years, you're going to look at this film. Not even that long. This film's going to be so dated. It's going to be like War Games.
But okay, here was also another problem I had with the film. John McClane in previous films had been more down and dirty. Whereas in this film, Bruce Willis looks so stylized and just so cool every minute.
And confident.
Exactly. That there was never any doubt in any of the scenes that he was going to get accomplished.
At least there could have been some sort of explanation that he got his shit together, quit smoking, decided to get fit as he got older or something like that. There's nothing. Timothy Olyphant is a fantastic actor. He's a very good actor. And on one hand, I'm kind of like glad to see him play a part like this because it's different than what he's been casted in a lot lately. But it's just such an uninteresting character.
Well, that's because, for the most part, he's the person behind it. But, like, for instance, who's the actress? Maggie Q, I believe?
Yeah.
She's more in charge than he is. And once they dispatch her character, that's when he finally really comes into the film. And then his big ace in the hole is to basically kidnap John McClane's daughter.
The effects are so fucking ridiculous with the CGI. The perfect example of that is the scene with the car inside the building, where his daughter and him are, and he's escaping a car and climbing. I'm like, how the fuck is he doing you would never see that scene in the first Die Hard film.
And there's stuff in there that you're like, why is that happening? Like, okay, I understand why these hackers are being killed off for the sake of the plot, for the sake of the script, I understand. But when you really think about it, why?
Why not?
It's like once this guy's plan goes into effect, it's going to go into effect. So why, it's not like these hackers are going to go run to anybody and say, oh, holy shit, I worked on that. I created this. It'll be too late for them to do anything about it anyway, so why kill them off? And they try to do this thing where like Timothy Olyphant delivers a speech to McClane saying, you're misunderstanding what's happening here. This is a good thing. I'm trying to show the government what I was trying to tell them and just prove to them why their security is flawed. And it's like, but you just fucking killed all these people.
It's just, as a Die Hard film, it's the easy to least. It just does not feel anything like.
And now they're making.
I make another one.
Part 5
with his son now. So now we got the wife out of the way, being in danger. Now we got the daughter out of the way, being in danger. Now we're gonna have a son.
I pray to God it's not Justin Timberlake. But I know we all agree here. The best film of the bunch is Die Hard, the first one. It's a classic. It has been copied all over the world. Other countries have ripped it off verbatim and made their own sequel.
I'm waiting to see the Turkish version.
Yeah, I think there's a few of them. One of these days I have to look it up and put a post on it. But it's very funny to see movies that just take the Die Hard formula. There's just been too many. Oh, another one is Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh yes, where he's
at the hockey rink. He's kickboxing and fighting
to save his kids and the vice president.
The Rock.
Oh, at the beginning of Michael Bay. Ugh.
Yeah,
Con Air.
Con Air.
Don't mention Con Air.
Exactly.
You love Simon West.
Exactly. Anyway, so we're done with this discussion. It's over. Die Hard is dead.
Now, there we go. All right, fans, as we have promised, there's your Die Hard show. We try to do the requests occasionally. Please post on the Facebook wall. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Take your blood money.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Subscribe to Unfinished Business Facebook page.
Twitter.
Unfinished B1 on Twitter.
And by the way, when you send us a friend request, please put CineFiles in the subject so we know who the hell you are. So anyway, that's my only thing I gotta say. But hope you enjoyed the show.
No hat.